me go into a little bit of detail here. I was first diagnosed with PTSD back in 2013 after a very serious traumatic thing happened with my daughter, which just added on to my trauma. I realized when I was not coping and I was not dealing with her trauma very well, I needed to get help for myself. Well, then we moved. We moved in 2014 down to Florida. I didn't seek help after that. I don't know why. I don't know if I just wasn't ready. So I got a job bartending and I wound up taking over the bar as a manager. It was then that I realized that my trauma was way too much because I was being re-traumatized there. There were things that were bringing up horrible things. I was seeing things that weren't cool. And my relationships were suffering. I almost lost my marriage. I had to admit myself into the hospital, and I'm not afraid to say that because I needed help. For years, my family tried to diagnose me as having bipolar disorder, which was very unfair because actually I didn't. It was actually because of my trauma. But then again, I never opened up about my trauma. It wasn't until like 2002. It's like my brain woke up and I crawled in bed one night with my mother, and this was after my abuse. I crawled in bed with my mom and I told her something that happened to me when I was 8 years old. And I just bawled and I bawled and I bawled. And I can't imagine what she went through. So anyway, I got in with a really good therapist. I found her. I loved her. She was trauma-based, and that's what I needed. She taught me awesome grounding techniques, and she let me work through things that we worked through, and that is when she started bringing up the dissociative disorder. What I do is I depersonalize and I derealize. I do not have D.I.D, which is known as what used to be known as multiple personality disorder. However, the YouTuber that I want you guys to go check out, and I've been very cautious about this because there's other YouTubers out there that I think kind of bank off of the D.I.D diagnosis, like it's a joke to them. She's the only serious YouTuber that I found that has the disorder, that's been diagnosed with it, and actually educates. And she hit some points on this one specific video that actually is the reason why I'm making this video and why I would love to collab with her. Now, while I don't have D.I.D, like I said, I depersonalize and I derealize. It is the brain's way of improperly coping, if you will. Some of it's natural and some of it's harmless, but when we do it too much, that's when it becomes a problem. Unfortunately, I do it too much. There is a specific trauma in my life, and I don't know why, and I try to overanalyze why, that happened when I was 14. I was sitting in session with her, and I get frustrated with myself because I want to talk about it, but I can't. And the minute I start to go into detail, I want to vomit. I want to get sick to my stomach. And that's usually when I will pretty much dissociate. And she'll watch me do it. And she'll have me stay grounded. She'll actually follow my body and make me have eye contact with her and say, stay with me. And that'll bring it back. Because what my body does is, let's say that I'm in session. And I'm not making this up. I'm going to let whatever happens, right? So I'm in session with her, and I won't make eye contact when I'm talking about certain traumas. It just makes me feel very vulnerable and uncomfortable. And that's the one thing she noticed too, is to note where I feel certain things. Like a lot of times I'll feel it here, it's very heavy on my chest. This specific trauma, right here. I don't know why. But I don't know why it happens, but I know when it happens. It's whenever I start to try to say his name. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, it literally just felt like my computer just went kawoof. Now, I do have to be careful because I do have, the Meniere's diagnosis, and that's fairly new, so sometimes that makes me dizzy, but this is not the same thing as being dizzy. This almost feels like I'm floating. When it happens, it feels like I'm floating. So when I start to talk about him, I'll feel my body actually shift to the right. I go numb. I will feel lightheaded, and then I can sometimes picture, it's like I know I'm here, but there's like this white ghostly me here, and that's where I feel like I'm at. And so it's like a split, if you will, but it's not a different personality, if that makes sense. When I try to say his name, it's like something just shuts off. I cannot physically say his name. I can say it in my head, and I can see his face, and it pisses me off because it makes me want to vomit. But I can't. I want to. I want to say his name so loud. I can't. Interesting enough, like a side note here, is that another reason why I drink coffee a lot is because it's one of my coping techniques. One of my coping techniques is feeling the warmth of the cup and feeling, my pressure on the clay, technically, or the porcelain, or whatever this is. I don't know what this is made of. And then the taste and the smell. So it's a lot. And a lot of times she would have to pull me back, and she'd like, stay present, because she could see my body start to shift. Like my whole body, it's not the same as having my Meniere's, because like I said, my Meniere's is very, very new. So it's very hard sometimes to distinguish, but yeah, my whole body would just kind of I would just shift. And so this is where like the D.I.D diagnosis is interesting to me, because if my body just does that and I don't have dissociative identity disorder, I can't imagine watching somebody with dissociative identity disorder, because we go through very similar things. They just go a little bit step further. And I'm really surprised I don't have multiple personalities. I really am. Now, the closest I think I ever came to questioning my behavior was when, now mind you, I was on Ambien. I had just taken it, so it really hadn't processed through my system. I was dealing with insomnia. My insomnia, unfortunately, was also a byproduct of my nightmares and not sleeping and my stress and a lot of triggers, because I was processing things a lot differently, or I was starting to learn how to process things. So I couldn't sleep one night. I was just wide awake, and I really haven't had too bad of insomnia lately. One, work's helped with that, but two, I think because I'm getting past it or whatever. So I was taking Ambien, and funny, and this is kind of one of the reasons why I stopped recording videos on YouTube, because it scared me so bad. I was recording a video. I don't remember the video it was about, but apparently it was something funny. I think I was making a joke about something, and my stupid computer is not charging properly. So I went and at some point during the video, mind you, I was still recording when I did this. I got up, I mixed grenadine, vodka, and wine together. You guys, I've bartended for years. I've never done this, okay? And that is all I remember. I remember it was almost like I was floating in the kitchen, and it happened to me a couple of times actually even before the Ambien, where it felt like I was floating. I couldn't remember if I took my medicine or not. It felt like I was floating, and so apparently I came back out and just kept recording. So the next morning, I don't remember going to bed. The next morning, I got up, and this iMovie was still open on my MacBook, and I was like, okay. I remembered the before, but I don't remember the after. And so when I watched the video, I was horrified, because the first like 5 or 10 minutes, it was just me talking to you like I'm talking to you now. And then you see me get up, and then I come back with this like flute glass, and I didn't drink it. I don't think I drank it. And my whole conversation shifted. My whole attitude shifted. My whole demeanor shifted. I started talking about weird things, like the devil made me do it kind of thing. Like I think I was joking about atheism or something, or something. I don't know. I don't remember. And that was horrifying. But it was the first time I actually saw myself change. And it could have been because of the lack of sleep. So it might have been like a fluke, But that's where we started discussing the derealization, the depersonalization and stuff, and exploring a little bit on the D.I.D diagnosis. We are sure that my family would have noticed if I've had multiple personalities. That's the one thing that my EDMR doctor had stated, but he's not saying that they would have. They might have just thought it was just something weird, But I think I would know, like, I don't have alters, I don't have different, names for anybody. I've always gone by one name, but I do go into a fantasy world. That's my safe spot. My fantasy world is my safe spot, and I still find myself doing it when I'm uncomfortable, and that's just the way that my brain processes. But writing has helped, and I notice that's also where my writing stops, because I'll get these ideas, and that's where my safe zone is. And then as soon as something touchy happens, I'll withdraw. Or the second I feel better, I withdraw from writing. So I think that's where I struggle with my writing sometimes. But I have great ideas. Like the books that I'm writing on, like one is a siren, and I really want her to be me, but I want her to be me with my trauma. Like, if I could make you guys feel what it's like to dissociate, you would go totally numb and not remember anything. Like, you would literally, it's not that I could almost freeze time in a sense. You wouldn't remember anything, or I could make you see and do things that I wanted you to do. Like, if I could project that onto screen, how would that look? But do it in a way that's more of a fantasy book, but underneath it all, it's kind of me. And so that's where I'm kind of hoping to go with all of this. But with Multiplicity, Emmy, her YouTube channel, I haven't fully checked it out, but the fact that she took the time to give an educational video, and she wasn't trying to make bank off of her situation, she was trying to educate and help, said a lot to me, because it wasn't just when she started talking about the ACEs and stuff like that. She was also talking about self-care and self-love, and how where our tolerance is. When we suffer from trauma from an early age, our tolerance is a lot lower. It's different. It may not be traumatic for you, and you may have handled that differently, but you're not me, you're not her, you're not us. We we went through some serious traumas, and we all deal differently. And when you go through multiple traumas, including bullying on top of it, which is traumatic enough, our brains are rewired, and it's something that she mentions, and I'm not going to go into too detail because she explains it very, very well in her video. It rewires. My fight, flight, or freeze is on overdrive. I am on a constant state of hypervigilance. That's why I don't know what to do with myself sometimes. I almost didn't recognize myself without some form of traumatic event or drama. I actually expected it to happen. It was like the doom or gloom. I just knew it was going to happen. When I was 15, I ran away. When I was 14, I ran away. I stole my sister's car and I ran away. It is not something I'm proud of, but that's how bad things were for me. I was just so screwed up. And in that I do self-blame. I have a lot of self-blame. That's where self-care takes a lot of time, a lot of work, and it's so important. Parents learning to properly soothe their children when they're hurting is so crucial. And she mentions that too. And I could not have said it better. And I'm so glad she said it, because I've tried to say it before and I kind of felt like I was the only one. Don't tell them to suck it up and get over it. Just because you would deal with it differently doesn't mean that that child would deal with it any differently. They are different. Their brains are wired different, just in a natural sense. So we have to learn to soothe a little bit. We're not talking about baby them. We're talking about learning to soothe a little bit. Calmly talk to them. See what they need. Not everybody responds to therapy the same. Everybody's different, And, it took me a long time to admit that my trauma was real. I mean, I crawled in bed with my mom, like, I've said before, out of the blue, it was like my brain woke up and it was accepting that, hey, I'm here, this happened, and I told her, and she was mortified. A part of her doesn't remember what happened when I was 14, because a friend of mine was the one who told her and told my dad, and my dad swears he doesn't remember reacting to what he did. He almost killed this person. He went off, and to him it never happened, and to me it's like, yeah, it did. Yes, it did. Twice. And then he went and lied about it in school. So that's why I can't watch certain shows, because that's too real for me. That's way too real. So yeah, I would love to collab with her, but that's kind of what it's like to be me on a daily. And that's what dissociative disorders feel like.